Welcome back to our latest episode of Built in Ohio. We have another fantastic guest, which you just all heard about. But Erandi, welcome. Thank you for being here. You are now our second person from Forge that has joined us. We had your colleague and co-founder Tim on, but so excited to hear about you and your story because it is different. It's unique. You and I had the opportunity to chat in person a little bit a short time ago, and I absolutely loved that. So I won't spoil any surprises, but I'd love to start with your background because you aren't someone that has been a part of Ohio and the tech community here for all that long. You spent time out in the Bay Area and other kind of
Yeah,
hubs on the coast. But if you wouldn't mind just sharing about yourself, where you grew up, and kind of your path that led you to Ohio, and we can kind of take it piece by piece.
absolutely. First of all, Chris, thank you so much for having us on and featuring Forge again. So excited to be here, especially because we are built in Ohio.
Yeah.
Um, yes, so my story is, has really allowed me to take science all over the world. I was born and raised in Southern Africa, grew up in Botswana, really became inspired to become a scientist because of where I grew up. I grew up was in school in the mid 90s and really saw around me a lot of international scientists and physicians and doctors coming in to help get a good handle on an HIV epidemic at the time. And, within a few short years, I saw the impact that they made. And that really inspired me to want to have a career doing something similar, really having a strong technical background and technical training that could then be applied to solving really translational problems that impacted people's lives. And I think that's really the theme that's carried me through all of my training, education, and even initiated that initial journey from Botswana to come to the US. So I landed in California, went to undergrad in California in the Bay Area. Um, I think anyone who sets foot in the Bay Area probably has wondered, if not for more than a minute, about what it would be like to be an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
I mean, there's such a buzz in the air about
Yeah.
entrepreneurship there. And I was right in the middle of it, Silicon Valley. I went to Stanford University and wondered about it back then, but really didn't understand or know how it could happen.
Mhm.
I knew I wanted to be a scientist and be a scientist first. So really what I pursued was more and more scientific training. So I went from undergrad to graduate school, spent the next 5 years on the East Coast getting my Ph.D. I'm a molecular biologist by training and, followed that path. So that led me back to the Bay Area where I joined a postdoctoral program. So a postdoctoral program is kind of like an apprenticeship after your PhD, where you really just do more research. And sometimes it can be in an academic setting, so attached to a university, and sometimes it can be in industry. So I joined a very big company called Genentech, which was really the pioneer in biotech. And again, that just really fueled that inspiration that I had for scientists with really technical training that were doing really translational activities that really impacted people's lives.
Yeah.
And so really immersed myself in that.
And yeah, I've kind of a question there because it seems like that postdoctoral, where if you either go to back into academia in the research side or industry, that seems like, and maybe this is just my non-scientific, ignorance and not being in the space, but that seems like a really big kind of moment where you can kind of choose one or the other. I guess one is that is that correct and accurate, and two, was it a difficult decision for you to either stay in the academic side or to go into the biotech space?
Yeah, it's absolutely a big decision that a young scientist has to
Yeah.
make. But I don't think that either path precludes one
Mhm.
or the other. There are so many amazing industry scientists who, never did an industry postdoc.
Yeah.
And, so I don't think it cuts you off. But I think what it exposed me to was early on in my career, I got to immerse myself in a company with 12,000 other scientists working on multiple different kinds of medications in different indications across the globe, really in a place that was so pivotal for me in forming how I, wanted to shape my career and what kind of um, vision I had for myself. What could I do
Mhm.
with this technical training that I was getting?
Yeah.
And of course, being in the Bay Area, I really always envisioned myself being in the Bay Area and growing my career there because that would have been the ideal place to be. I mean, there are probably over 1,000 biotech companies in the Bay Area, and that's really what I envisioned myself doing.
Yeah.
But, fast forward 8 years now, and here I am building a biotech company in the Midwest in a place that really hadn't crossed my mind 10 years ago.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of steps in between that. So I don't.
Yeah, no, I love that. And we'll kind of, I guess, fast forward a bit, but you're coming to Ohio, you're moving to
Mhm.
Columbus specifically. Where did you end up landing, and what was the, I guess, the first job that you had after moving from the Bay Area?
The first job I had after I moved was unemployment. So I have been there. I landed here with no connections, didn't know anybody, didn't have a network, and didn't have a job lined up. But, I think what Columbus enabled me to do was to very quickly get networked in to get to know some of the best and brightest in the field and in the industry.
Mhm.
And that's really enabled because it's, first and foremost, probably a small place where it's easy to get to know one another or get connected. Maybe the degrees of separation are not as big as in as in the Bay Area, for
Yeah.
example, right? But I also think it's a certain Midwest kindness
Mhm.
and making time for people that really enabled, this young upstart from the Bay Area, transplanted recently, didn't know a soul in the region, but people made time for me, and I'm so grateful for that. And really, every step along the way of this journey in Ohio, I can trace back to someone who made time um, for a coffee or a
Mhm.
chat. And, I just hope that I can pay that forward and make sure that, we're uplifting this community together.
Yeah.
So many people helped me to get here.
Yeah, that's incredible. One of our friends here and another guest on this podcast, Naveed Iqbal, he's the co-founder and CEO of a fintech in Columbus called Dollar. I've heard him say a number of times that Ohio and Columbus, uh, that you can get a first coffee or that first meeting with pretty much anyone in town. It's up to you though, then, if you're going to have a second meeting or a third meeting with them based on what you present or how you ask or whatever that might look like. But I thought that was so true of there's the Midwest kindness, and there's just incredible passion and energy and people wanting to help people, because while it's a big economy, there's these metro areas, there's a lot going on, there's institutions, there's companies. It's still pretty small, and you can run into, if you reach out to someone and they say no or don't kind of ghost you, you could be at Giant Eagle or Kroger and run into them. So I think there's an incentive to be kind, which is a neat thing for around here. But as you were making that transition from scientist to entrepreneur, what was the switch? What was the catalyst? What encouraged you or drove the passion to do so?
hmm Yeah, so I mentioned that, anyone living or stepping into the Bay Area has probably wondered about becoming an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
But I think that the challenge is that so much of being an entrepreneur isn't a mapped out path, right?
Yep.
There's nobody telling you, oh, you need to go complete your undergrad, go get your PhD, and then you'll become an entrepreneur, right?
Yeah.
And especially when you are a scientist and you are trained to be very deep in the details, it's sometimes hard to step out of that mindset and to really get to that 10,000-foot level where you can think about and plan a business and think about and plan a roadmap
Yeah.
for a company. So I think some of that really came from some of the opportunities that I had while here in Ohio. So it became more and more obvious to me that I could do this just because of some of the things that I did after that unemployment period. So one of the first things, one of the first jobs that I got was actually at Ohio State at the Drug Development Institute, which is a James Cancer Center funded institute, which looks across the university and gives the opportunity for academic investigators to get some funding to really develop their products, right? To make them more translational. So they get investment from the DDI to translate and mature their projects into something that maybe a pharmaceutical company or a biotech company might want to take on. So I was one of the founding scientists for the DDI, and in being in that setting in a top tier institution, meeting with academic investigators, thinking about how I could take their research, fund it, develop it, pitch it to potential investors and biotech companies. I think I really got that sense for what makes a good product,
Yeah.
what makes something viable, how do we design a study to get to that quick answer about whether something is going to go forward or not, and it's things like that that really help you get the experience
Mhm.
that help you then venture out into entrepreneurship when that opportunity comes.
Yeah, I love that, and I also think as you're sharing that and kind of the boost of the experience and probably just oh, and of course I can't think of the word, but just helping give you that confidence as
Well,
a scientist, and I also think back where you're probably also pulling from working in the Bay Area and being around a bunch of scientists at biotech companies, and you're picking and choosing, and I think that's something I really enjoy and appreciate about your story is one, you moved to Ohio, and and I didn't know the unemployment part, but I knew the Ohio State, but it's even in some ways better of literally moving here without the connections, without, knowing anyone. That's tough. And there's a lot of people that, listen to this podcast and have reached out to us that, live in places like San Francisco or Seattle or Boston. And most of them are from here. If you're going to listen to an Ohio focused tech podcast, there's probably a reason or passion behind it. But then second is as I think of Ohio's opportunity, especially in tech and especially even more so in biotech, we have these incredible hospital systems and these universities and these research centers that are just filled with scientists and PhDs and, maybe people on the commercialization side. And there's just a real, there's just so much talent in that space. But to be able to then, if you have that idea or you see an idea or you're presented that opportunity to actually say, hey, I'm going to go start something, whether it spins out or there's a brand new idea. It's just incredible. And as we think of giving Ohio and Columbus and Cleveland and Cincinnati the scale of places like Boston and the Bay Area to, how do we create more forges? And you all are literally building the way for folks. I just think I just think it's absolutely so incredible. And as you said, 8 years into this, and it's being in Columbus, and here you are working with an incredible company and having really built something and building something every day. It's so cool. And I just love the story from start to not even finish, because you all are just getting started.
Just getting started.
Yeah.
Thanks for that, Chris, because what I love about it is that yes, all of these amazing technical universities that are local are pumping out life sciences graduates at all these different levels who typically look to the East Coast and West Coast for jobs. So I believe that they don't have to anymore.
Yeah.
Because there is a growing nexus of companies locally that are hiring, are paying great salaries, are groups that are, just as competitive as either the West Coast or the East Coast, looking for top tier talent, and really have big visions for what they can do in Ohio, with not only the resources available, but also the talent.
Yeah.
And increasingly, we and others in the region are recruiting from the East Coast and the West Coast. So people are realizing that there are opportunities here to grow the businesses, to contribute, and to grow their careers. And I'm excited to say, that at Forge, we are growing And we are hiring not only local, but also transplants like myself, who actually want to leave some of that Bay Area biotech and come here.
I love that, and it's so spot on with what you were just sharing. And there's I think this isn't I can't claim copyright to any of this, but to build a great tech company, to build these, it takes people and it takes capital. And as you said, we've had these institutions and that are either training that those next generation of scientists, and they're graduating, or just the industry that's already here, and the researchers that maybe have come here like yourself after completing their education. And that is something Ohio we've had for a long time, is the smart people, because there's these incredible institutions. What we have lacked is that capital side of it, where it takes for what you all are doing at Forge, it takes a lot of money. And as you were walking me around your incredible facility, that's not a laptop and sitting in a garage type company. I mean, this is significant investment, and why it's on a lot of different ways, Forge is paving the way for this space in biotech. And congratulations to you all for your Series C raise, which was $90 million, I believe. And that was, I think, announced in September, which has now brought the total for $330 million that you and the team have raised, which is just absolutely incredible. And it's those things that literally are putting Ohio on the map. And as you open up and you read industry publications or venture news websites, that gets people's attentions regardless of where you're at. And really kudos to you and Tim and your other team mates, because that's kind of I think that next step and that next evolution for what our cities and what the state can do. Because you can have great ideas, but if you just don't have that capital, and if you're not paving the way for others to hopefully raise, whether they're in biotech or other tech spaces, it just makes it even more tough to build technology, because you have to have the resources in order to do it.
Yeah, that's a great point, Chris. I think the story of Forge is so fundamental to Columbus because one of our foundational investors is right here in our backyard. So, Drive Capital, our foundational investor, is the largest non-coastal venture capital group in the country. So they're really looking for opportunities that are outside of East and West Coast, or what you can think of as non-traditional places where people are trying to build companies and scale them. And what I love about their mission and their vision is that, they are really committed to helping build strong companies with a big vision that are really here to scale, and to want to scale in regions outside of the traditional the traditional technology
Yeah.
hubs of Silicon Valley or even Boston. So Forge Biologics was the first life sciences investment from the Drive Capital portfolio, and they really helped to not only bring the founders together, but to really help to bring additional investors from the East Coast, who are experienced life sciences investors to the table, right? And I think having that foundational anchor here in Columbus who can support us, be available on site for us, really gave us our first home, gave us our first desk space where we could powwow and map out the vision for this company, was really critical in helping to bring our additional investors like Perceptive Advisors, RA Capital, to the table as we scaled the business to now over $330 million worth of investment.
Wow, that's awesome. And you're absolutely right, where Drive is so important to the Columbus tech story, because much like you all paving the way for biotech in the state, when they came here, and in some cases it's one of those, you think of it now and it's just so natural and it makes all the sense in the world. But when Mark and Chris were coming to start it up, it was there was articles in the newspaper of here's this idea, and the difficulty of it, because they were rowing against the the historical tide, and just the public perception of, you got to go to the West Coast, you got to go to the East Coast to build this. And so all of this, the Forge story, the Drive story, it's just also new, which is, I think, really, really exciting. And maybe you feel this as well, but I certainly do, of big cities, and I've lived on the East Coast, and San Francisco or New York or Boston. Those are established cities, and even like in Austin, Texas, I feel like. But to some of your earlier comments, Columbus is that small enough where you can get around. Cleveland, Cincinnati as well, but you can also feel like you can make an impact. But you can also find and use the built-in resources like you all, where the amount you've raised, and just the size and the scope and how many team members you now have. I don't know if that would have been necessarily possible 15 or 20 years ago, just because of preconceived notions that you just couldn't do it, which is just not accurate at all.
Yes, I mean, I always say, Forge is a product of the place and the
Yeah.
time and the people, right? So, I mean, I believe that Drive Capital had to be here.
Yep.
I believe that the gene therapy industry had to be taking off at the time that it did to be here and to build this company. I believe that the people, the founders, had to come together at that moment
Yeah.
and have this know-how to build and scale this business. And all of the team members that have joined us since. I mean, we are now almost at 290 employees
Wow.
in just a bit over 2 years. And we've really been focused on building and scaling this business, both, in terms of number of employees, but also in terms of putting that money to work in building infrastructure here in Grove City.
Yeah.
So we have 200,000 square foot of space here, which we are building manufacturing facilities to manufacture these important medicines called gene therapies.
Mm-hmm.
And we're putting that all of that investment that we've raised into operationalizing this business.
That's awesome. And you mentioned the 2 years-ish in business, and again, as I had the opportunity somewhat recently to tour it, that's also, if you just look at calendars around COVID and the start of it, which the work that you all are in, and again, this is another something I noticed when I walked in, is just the vibrancy of the space in Grove City and the office, and the amount of team members, because you're in an industry that you have to be there. There's a lot of tech companies that, if you have a laptop, you can be on a beach somewhere or on a sailboat or, wherever you want to be. But for biotech, you have to be there, and it's scientists and it's in person. Yeah. Yeah.
You can't make medicines without being on site,
Yeah.
manufacturing these products, having quality oversight, and team members who want to be here.
Yeah.
And so we've intentionally been very thoughtful about the experience for the employees, what the space looks like, how it feels. It should feel open, transparent. It should feel vibrant, and also that it should feel like it's an innovative place, so that people want to come here and want to join this company.
Mhm.
And we want to make it a great place to work. We have won awards for being one of the great places to work in Ohio, and we're very proud of that, because we believe that culture is an important aspect to being able to scale this business and to retain the employees that we've been able to bring here.
Yeah, and I'm glad you brought up culture, because I think that's another, it can be a bit overused and buzzword, but as I speak with founders and co-founders and early team members across the state, it's something that I think when it's very intentionally done, and there's a lot of thought, and that's something that's always really struck me with the Forge. And again, getting to see it in person, it just really shines in from the second you walk in the door. But I know another area that you've been passionate about is something called SheForge. SheForges, excuse me, and STEM and biotech, and getting more students, and students, it's young women and girls, but also building out the team so it's diverse and reflective of our communities, but the communities you serve, and getting more young leaders and leaders into the space, and making sure that it's a diverse place and terrific place to work. So could you tell us a little bit about SheForges?
Absolutely. So one of the things that we've been able to do here at Forge is to really maintain a track record of recruiting and retaining great female talent. So I'm really proud to say that half of our company is actually female, and has been so for the last 2.5 years that we've been in business. So we started a program called She Forges, which is a way of really, providing a community for these women to not only celebrate each other's achievements, but to talk about maybe some of the challenges they may be facing in their careers or their career growth. So we have really structured um, time such that we are making sure that women can advance their careers with us and really have a place to communicate and celebrate their challenges.
That's incredible. What does that look like? And I know there's the two parts to it where I'd love to talk about the student side, because building a life sciences and tech pipeline is vital to the advancement and growth. And, how in 5 or 10 years are there, not just one Forge, but, maybe team members are spinning off and starting their own companies, or there's just more growth and investment. So I'd love to kind of talk about the pipeline and some of the stuff that Forge is doing on the student side. But then also for She Forges, what does that look like as maybe a new team members coming in? And you mentioned half the company being female, which is, I think, incredible for any business, but specifically in STEM, where there's historically and still to this day current challenges where we've got to do better. So would love what that's kind of like, because we do have a lot of entrepreneurs, founders, and just tech executives that listen to this, where perhaps they can pull some inspiration from what you all are doing on a day-to-day basis with the team with She Forges, and maybe incorporate it into some of their work.
Yeah, I hope so. I mean, so what I can say is that She Forges came together so organically and so energetically just because we've been able to have so many women on the team. So it was very easy to get it off the ground. It wasn't hard for us to pull this together, you know. So our first meeting literally had probably every woman in the company joining the meeting, right? Because they were so excited about this kind of forum for bringing together all the women in the company.
Yeah.
And so what we did was intentionally set it up as a very structured program.
Hmm.
So there were 2 tracks. We planned out probably a year's worth of planning of planned meetings where we would get together and have scheduled programming.
Hmm.
Part of that programming involved hearing from each other. So, we would have 2 to 3 women really talking about their stories, telling us how they got to where they were in their career, maybe any challenges they've been facing, um, maybe anything that they really wanted to celebrate and talk about.
Hmm.
And then part of that programming would be tools and tips and tricks of the trade that we could all learn from each other. So really trying to equip each other with best practices for how to navigate maybe some of the issues we may be facing in the workplace.
That's great.
The second track was more of a management focused track where we wanted to bring in an executive coach and have very specific tailored programming so that we could help to grow our leaders, to make them better managers, and to really help them envision what their careers could grow into being. So we've had great engagement now. We've just celebrated 1 year anniversary of She Forges, and we've had a lot of great engagement from the employees in this really quite structured program. And we hope to just continue and grow this. We've done a lot of outreach events in our local community to help give back, to help educate about science, and to really show that, this is what a scientist looks like.
Yeah.
It may not all, be what you've seen in books, right?
Yeah. I love that. And congrats on the year anniversary of it, because
Thank you.
I think it's it's tough to create new things, especially as culture growing and the scaling and just the fast paced environment. And there's a lot of things, in the workplace that get created and added. But I think, those that are built as intentionally as it sounds like yours and She Forges has, not only does it have staying power, but the impact only grows with time. And I think that's really awesome and amazing. And again, it's hopefully something that others can find inspiration of and perhaps bring it to their companies, or they can share it with their networks across the state, and we can help spread the message, because it all starts with pipeline, both for current jobs, in helping an advancement, but also with the student side, which I also have loved learning about, because I think that's the one area that Ohio kind of demographic trends aren't as strong as southern states and western states. And the only place we're going to find more scientists, more STEM workers, more tech pros is getting as many students and young girls passionate about tech and healthcare. And that there are some incredible opportunities, but if they can't see that it's a possibility, I think in some cases it's already kind of it makes a difficult situation even worse. And so it's amazing to hear what you all are doing.
Absolutely. And I mean, I can actually set aside She Forges for a minute, because Forge also has multiple initiatives just in greater outreach for STEM education as well as workforce development. So these are areas that we have to critically develop within our company and care a lot about, because to your point, we need that pipeline of talent, right? We don't want to always be relying upon other groups or other universities or other technical organizations to help funnel talent. We really want to help build that talent locally. And our commitment is to help build that here. So we have partnered with Columbus State to launch a BioTech boot camp to help educate on, what it actually means to work in a biotech. What kinds of skills do you need, right? Maybe that doesn't mean going all the way to get your Ph.D. and postdoctoral training. Maybe that could just be an associate's degree or an undergraduate degree, and then you can come and join us. We also have a really robust internship program. So we had over 400 applicants to our intern program last year for 20 positions.
Wow.
And this is applicants coming to us from across the country. So, we have really been able to get the word out about not only Forge and its mission, but also the kinds of opportunities that we are creating in the gene therapy industry at large. And it's really resonated with a lot of young people. And I think there's a lot of excitement about coming to work with us, even for a few months in the summer. So I'm really excited to see what happens next year, how many people need to apply.
That's cool. And again, it's so impressive to, the relative short lifespan of a startup, and all that you have built into it. And, again, the intentionality of, and I don't hold it against startups that, hey, they're just so busy and there's just so much going on that they can't invest. But in a lot of ways, the strategic vision that you all have, just for the growth and what not just tomorrow looks like, but the 5 and 10 and 15 and 20 years. You just don't see a lot of startups doing things like investing in workforce and trying to grow it organically, because and we see it, and again, there's nothing wrong, but there's kind of the tactically of jobs boards and filling today's needs. But if we don't tackle that workforce equation, that pipeline's got to increase. We're not going to realize this opportunity, I don't think.
Maybe it's because it's this attitude of we'll get to it later.
Yeah.
And I think that probably having that attitude means you will never get to it.
Yeah, right.
It may be too late.
Right.
But what I will say about my teammates at Forge is it's been so easy to get these programs off the ground because of the passion of people at all different levels in the company. Right. So if you think about She Forges, yes, of course, there was the executive sponsors in the leadership level saying, hey, this is something we should do and care about. Right. But who actually gets it off the ground?
Yeah.
It's, people at all of the rest of the employees who really want to, raise their hand and organize meetings and create content and share stories, or a workforce development group. Or initiative, who really gets that off the ground? Of course, you get the executive sponsor and leadership buy-in, but it's the employees that really give the time, go to the universities, establish the relationships, and help build these organizations. And I think when you have a strong culture of wanting to build each other up, building our community up, while we're doing it, I think it's so easy or easier to get buy-in from people to prioritize these kinds of activities, in addition to what you can imagine is a very heavy workload.
Right.
Building a startup, right?
Right.
We are, understaffed chronically, right?
Yeah.
Because we want to do so many things so fast. And so we always feel like we're understaffed. And yet you look back and we've done so much.
Yeah, I love that, and there's got to be that comfort level with the entire team, and having team members feel like that they can step up, and regardless of the role or seniority or how long someone's been on the team,
Mhm.
whether it's a long time or they're more new to the role, having that comfort level to be able to step into something and say, I don't want to just participate, but I want to take a leadership role and helping get it up off the ground, or just an active participant, because yeah, building things are great, but if no one's showing up for it and feeling engaged and wanting to participate, it's kind of all for naught, which is, there's not a lot of sustained success there. But I want to ask one other question kind of on the Forge story before we get to kind of the very end of the show and some of our questions we ask all of our guests, which we asked Tim some of these too. So it'll be fun to kind of hear different perspectives. But another one is around Forge launching your independent scientific and manufacturing advisory board
Yes.
with a panel of gene therapy leaders. And I'd love to hear more about that, and what you all have done there. And there's a couple ways I could, love to tackle this, but I would just love to get your take on it first.
Yes. So, the reason for having an independent scientific and manufacturing advisory board is really to provide an independent perspective on some of our business strategies and some of the opportunities in front of us. So, it's really nice to have established, well known leaders in the field wanting to, be on this board with us
Mhm.
and view our growth plans, our growth strategies, our growth opportunities, and really help provide some context for what we're doing as a business and provide maybe some of that. It's really that ears on the ground
Yeah,
feedback,
yeah,
right?
absolutely.
That we get because, of course, we have a lot of connections in the industry as a team,
Hmm.
and we keep a really good pulse on competitive intelligence and
Hmm.
what's going on in the field and what the new opportunities are. But to have that dedicated group of experts really advising us, and their sole purpose and mandate is to advise,
Yeah.
is a really important back check
Yeah,
for a lot
definitely.
of things.
And I love it for a lot, but two that really stick out to mind is one, and again, the selfish nature of my work, where it's about Ohio and promoting and helping showcase what is happening in our state. But it just seems like such a fascinating other way to get more people connected to this Ohio success story that's being built. And if it's and I don't have the cities, but if someone's in a Boston or San Francisco or a New York or wherever they're at, different academic research institutions, but it just spreads out the network effect of what
Absolutely.
is happening here, and I absolutely love it. And then secondarily, again, we have a lot of startup founders or people that maybe are in the process of thinking about it, or people that are a researcher at a university. And it's just I love these kind of tools or tricks of the trade that you were mentioning on another topic a minute ago. But it's these things that I think people can really take from other startups, maybe ones that are a couple series ahead of them or a little bit further along in the growth, and say, well, how can I apply that to my company? And maybe I'm not in the biotech space, but if I'm in financial services, well, maybe there's ways to engage an advisory board with bank leaders from across the country, and you
Yeah,
get that in-house expertise that you can share and build.
I love it. It's
Yeah,
such a common thing in biotech, right, to
yeah,
have a scientific advisory board. And because we are building a scientific and manufacturing company, we
yeah,
have a scientific and manufacturing advisory
yeah,
board, right? But I never thought about applying it to other industries, and I think that's great because yes, if nothing else, these folks can go out there and be your evangelists,
yeah.
right? They know all the talking points about your company and can talk about what you're trying to do and really help raise the awareness, maybe in places that you can't be all the time.
Yeah, absolutely. I love it. And unfortunately, now we do need to pivot towards the end of the show. But I could have gone deep on a bunch of this stuff, and have absolutely loved the conversation. But these are a couple questions that are just fun, that they're designed to, we can hear different perspectives. And so we'll talk to someone in Cleveland and maybe they're again in financial services or fintech, and then someone in Cincinnati and maybe they're in, building a new SaaS company, or they're an investor in Akron. It's just fun to get different perspectives on these kind of fun questions.
Oh,
But the first one is a favorite read, listen, or watch. So this could be a book, a podcast, or a show. It can be work related, something very technical that you look into every day, or something completely fun that helps you disconnect at the end of the night and recharge for the next day.
Okay, I am a total reader for fun. I read for the escapism, so I have no good books to recommend on leadership, business. So I really like to do the escapist reading, the fiction,
Yep.
anything like that. So that's what I recommend, and the same goes for TV shows. So I'm currently really into The Crown.
Oh yeah, the new season's out. Yeah,
Yep. Just yes, some part of it is historic, but absolutely it's a fictional escape.
Yeah.
So loving the English accents, which feel
Yeah.
very homely to me too.
Yeah, no, I love it. I'm the exact same. Where I love the historical, some fiction, maybe
Fiction.
nonfiction. So I love that on the show side, and then I'm the same on the reading, where my guilty pleasure is spy books, because it has nothing to do with what I do, and so I can completely escape into a different realm, and it's a fun way to, just at the end of the night, you don't think about work when you're reading about a cool spy book.
So my favorite book is actually Charlie and the Chocolate Factory by Roald Dahl. So for my kids, I got the box set of all of his books.
Mm-hmm.
And it turns out two of the books in there are his autobiography, which are hilarious. So, I mean, it's like the one I'm reading right now is called Going Solo, and it's about his time as a pilot in the Royal Air Force, during World War II, and like all of the antics that he had in Africa. And it's hilarious. Just the way that Charlie and the Chocolate Factory is imaginative and so funny. I am not sure if these stories are actually true.
Right.
Hilarious.
But you get to kind of turn the mind off at the end of the night, and
absolutely.
Yeah, just read something fun. I love it. Next question is favorite place. So like a physical location, favorite place in Ohio that, again, it's the weekend or you've had a busy week, you get to escape to and you just enjoy it. Or maybe as you have family visitor in town or friends visitor in town, you take them there. What's a favorite place?
Yeah, so my favorite place in Columbus is called Japan Marketplace.
Okay.
It's a little group of shops and restaurants over on Old Henderson Road. And I love it because it feels so escapist to me. So it has a little sushi restaurant. It has a little Japanese gift shop. It has a Japanese bakery. And you can basically spend an afternoon there. You can have lunch, have your sushi meal, have a coffee and a sweet treat from the bakery, and then browse around in this cute little Japanese gift shop. The place feels like a little trip outside the country, to be honest. So I love it. I recommend it. I take everyone who comes to visit me there.
That's awesome. Love it. And that's actually, that answers our next one, which I assume is your favorite meal in Ohio. And I'm guessing that's a twofer right there, which if you can explore and also kind of, feel like you traveled somewhere, but still be able to drive home and sleep in your own bed. That's a double win.
Absolutely. Recommend it.
Yeah. Well, Erandi, this has been fantastic. I've absolutely loved the conversation. Thank you so much for spending time with us to share what you and the team are building at Forge. And again, I've loved following along the story. And every time I see a new press release about something that you all have built or you're putting out there or you're announcing or a new fundraising round, I just love it. And we can't say thank you enough for what you're building in Ohio. And I think it's one of those things that's incredibly important, and it's so fun to watch along and root on for you guys. And we're big fans at Ohio X. So thank you for all you're doing and building, and we appreciate you being here today. Anything we didn't talk about that you want to put in, or how can people learn more about Forge or careers or anything like that?
Thank you so much for having us. We are really grateful. Yes, absolutely. So you can learn more about Forge either at our LinkedIn page or on our website, www.forgebiologics.com. We are always looking for great talent. So, if you have any recommendations or you're looking to apply, please feel free. We have jobs in all different areas of our business.
I love it. And we'll put both the LinkedIn, the website into the show notes. So anyone listening, you can just scroll down, one click off, but check them out. They're doing amazing work. They're continuing to grow and expand. They have all these new team members coming. It's such an exciting place to follow along with. So we definitely recommend it. But again, thank you for joining. Everyone, thank you for listening. We appreciate you being here. It's been another fun, exciting episode of Built in Ohio. We're appreciative of you joining along. So have a great day, everyone, and we'll talk to you all soon. Bye-bye.